Obviously, yesterday did not go the way that Elizabeth Warren probably had been planning this past year, with her coming in fourth place with 9.2% of the vote, meaning that she is not going to be awarded any delegates coming out of that second contest. And you sort of got an idea that this was starting to sink in through her speech. We have just a little bit of it for you, but we're gonna show that to you, and then we want to look back a little bit on her campaign and try to figure out exactly how she got to this place. But more importantly, going forward in these upcoming 3 or so weeks of contests, what is likely to happen? What should she do? But first, here is some of her speech last night.
I also want to congratulate my friend and colleague, Amy Klobuchar, for showing just how wrong the pundits can be when they count a woman out. The question for us Democrats is whether it will be a long, bitter rehash of the same old divides in our party, or whether we can find another way. Senator Sanders and Mayor Buttigieg are both great people, and either one of them would be a far better president than Donald Trump. I respect them both. But the fight between factions in our party has taken a sharp turn in recent weeks, with ads mocking other candidates and with supporters of some candidates shouting curses at other Democratic candidates. These harsh tactics might work if you are willing to burn down the rest of the party in order to be the last man standing. They might work if you don't worry about leaving our party and our politics worse off than how you found it. And they might work if you think only you have all the answers and only you are the solution to all our problems. But if we're going to beat Donald Trump in November, we are going to need huge turnout within our party. And to get that turnout, we will need a nominee that the broadest coalition of our party feels like they can get behind.
I mean, my immediate reaction is I feel like the broadest coalition does have someone they feel that they can get behind. But I sort of see that speech as the rolling out of a strategy. That's not generally how she's been talking about this race so far. But obviously, Iowa did not go well. New Hampshire went even worse. And so, look, you've been following the race this entire time. You've talked a little bit about it, but what were some of the sort of standout moments that led her to this place?
First of all, David Dane named names last night. Joe Rosbars is in her campaign, is kind of an establishment person, let's leave it at that, in the campaign that's pushed her in this direction consistently and has been probably the root of almost all the mistakes in the campaign. But a turning point obviously was when she announced her plan for Medicare for All. It started to walk away from Medicare for All, and she did that in a couple of stages. And in the beginning, I was like, no, it's still Medicare for All. Anna yelled at me, and I thought that is going to create division in the party. No, or perhaps we're having a healthy debate that gets us to the right policies. And then she backed away more and more, and her polling went down, down, down. And then, but another moment happened that was very important. 200 Obama officials endorsed her. They made a big deal about it, and so all these, the conservative wing of the party, the establishment wing of the party, gained strength within her campaign and destroyed it from the inside. And her drop is exactly at that time. There's no question about it. Those two key factors, when the establishment came in 100 strong to influence her to go in this direction, and when she started backpedaling from progressive platforms. Now, why is Amy Klobuchar doing well? Because she is actually the only other candidate other than Bernie Sanders to be consistent about her positions throughout. So Buttigieg was unequivocally for Medicare for All, then Medicare for All for those who kind of want it, maybe, right? And Elizabeth Warren, I love her and I think she's a great progressive and has done some wonderful things, but took her campaign in an establishment direction. I knew it would, lead to disaster, and it did lead to disaster. We're not the bad guys for pointing it out. That's clearly what happened. Anyone who defies that is defying reality. It's absurd. So they say, like, for example, some will claim, no, it's that she backed Medicare for All more at that point. No, that's just counterfactual. Second of all, even if that were true, why would that lead to a decline if the guy who is most known for Medicare for All went up? and not down. So they just have no logic at all. So now at this late date, that was a depressing speech. So number one, people being rude is establishment 101. Blaming people who are being rude. Oh, I don't like being criticized, so I'm gonna take rando on Twitter who said something and say, oh, that's it, that's Bernie Sanders supporters, all of them, and Bernie Sanders himself, and everyone who's ever backed Bernie Sanders is that one guy on Twitter because someone was rude. Let's do civility and not talk about the differences that we have. Sorry, no deal. And so I said no deal when I was backing Warren as well, like meaning, hey, she's a great progressive. I don't know, I've said it probably 1,000 times. And so if somebody says, hey, Biden and Elizabeth Warren have the same banking policy, I'd say you're mental. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm being rude. Okay, they are completely different. Elizabeth Warren's banking policy is fantastic. Biden's banking policy is a disaster. I'm sorry, was I rude in pointing out your policy differences? Warren is right, Biden is wrong. But on other issues, now, unfortunately, Warren is wrong and Bernie is right. And so now she says, don't do that. Don't point out the differences. And I'm gonna pull a Chuck Todd and mainstream media 101 because these new Obama Clinton people in my campaign are telling me if I say that Bernie is rude, I'm gonna win. How's that working out for the rest of the candidates?
Yeah.
Why would you listen to those idiots?
So we don't have too much time, but I am interested in your opinion where if, like I see that speech and I think that like, okay, maybe we're gonna see some ads like that. It seems like a horrible direction going. I can't possibly imagine how that's gonna help her to win. But if you were to advise her, like we're only 2 states in. Klobuchar rose a bunch in just a week, which means that hypothetically candidates still could. What do you think she could do to increase her chances at this point?
No, it's too late. So I hate to say that, but it's done. So look, guys, we did advise her in a sense, in a couple of senses. So do I know people in her campaign? Yes. Do I think that there are wonderful progressives in her campaign? Absolutely. Did they have the right intentions? Yes. Did they have the right strategy? Yes. Until the establishment guys came in and imploded her campaign just like they do to every campaign. Beto O'Rourke had a great strategy in his Senate run. It was to distribute power to the volunteers. He broke every record there was on organizing. Then he had Obama's deputy campaign manager come and run his presidential campaign right in the goddamn ground. Hindenburg, boom, giant explosion. People see that and they go, oh, Obama campaign officials, they are geniuses. Then they drive Warren's campaign into the ground and nobody learns, even Elizabeth Warren's not learning. So we, but more importantly, on air.
Yeah.
And we supported Warren's campaign, or at least I did, I should speak for myself, when she was completely progressive. And then she stopped being completely progressive. We are sorry, we are not going to do things based on personality and loyalty to people and being civil. We are going to insist on doing things based on policy. I supported Tulsi Gabbard back when she was a progressive. I know it seems like a long time ago. But Tulsi Gabbard used to be progressive 95% of the time. Good enough, wonderful, great, right? Then now she's out there saying that Trump should have fired the Vindmans and Sondland and sending love letters to Rush Limbaugh. What? No, I care about policy, I care about facts. So at this point for Warren, how could listening to the idiots who ruined your campaign get you better results? Go the other direction, go the other direction. So, but it's hopeless, she can't, there is no, it's too late. I'm being realistic, I'm serious. I'm not rooting against her, I'm rooting for her. But it's too late, realistically, in politics. So your only remaining play is, I endorse Bernie Sanders, and I think he's going to make an incredible president, and we're going to unify the party. And you could say, oh, sure, Cenk, you endorse Bernie, you always like Bernie, you're biased. But I've said it 1,000 times, I've been right most of the time, not with Klobuchar, but with everyone else. And so, okay, ignore it. We'll see how it turns out for you. And by the way, she went more establishment after I and you and Anna endorsed Bernie Sanders. And And that was from that moment on, total disaster. Not necessarily related to us. I don't know if we had a 1% rule, whatever it was, but she decided to go the establishment route. All right, if she goes and backs Bernie now, they win together. They win together. And by the way, there's a great case to be made. I know some people in Bernie's camp, I don't mean in his campaign, I mean his supporters, are gonna say, no way, it's heresy, etc. But her as VP does unite the party to some degree now that she's seen as more establishment. It's a winning progressive ticket overall. And guess what? Then Elizabeth Warren's in the White House. So if I'm advising her, do that before it gets too late to do that. And by the way, tick, 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 after a couple more primaries and then you're at 5% and you're at 3%, then you got no leverage left. So my real opinion and analysis for her, because I really, really respect her and she's done wonderful work, is get on the Bernie team immediately. Stop listening to anyone from Obama or Hillary's campaign immediately. Otherwise, there's gonna be nothing left to salvage. And we've got to have, at a bare minimum, you as Treasury Secretary. It's a must. So for God's sake, stop listening to them. Get back in the progressive camp and we win this thing together.
Don't miss your chance to win a trip to Los Angeles and have dinner with Cenk, John, and me. Just head to tyt.com/dinnerinla to register to win. Sign up for a free Aspirations Spend and Save account. Then you just register your eligibility and swipe your Aspiration card daily on purchases to gain entries. Not only are you entering to win a trip to Los Angeles and dinner with TYT hosts, you're also not depositing your hard-earned money into fossil fuel exploration or production. As a friendly reminder, even if you already have an Aspiration account, you must still register for eligibility into the sweepstakes.